Welcome to the next episode of the Dark Web Deacon. Before we begin, be sure to smash that subscribe button, click the bell to turn on notifications. New videos are published every Monday and Thursday, and as always, be sure to like and provide comments. Hackers have been around since the dawn of computers. Here's a list of the most well-known hackers and what they've become infamous for in the hacking community and around the world. For this list, we will only be looking at individual hackers and not hacking groups. And they will be ranked based on the historical significance of their hacking, difficulty level, and financial and social impact. Adrian Lamo, also known as the homeless hacker for his transient lifestyle. Despite all that, he was able to hack into the internal networks of the New York Times in 2002. His hack gave Lemo access to private databases, including one that had private information of more than 3,000 people who had contributed to the paper's op-ed section. In 2001, 20-year-old Lemo used an unprotected content management tool at Yahoo to modify a Reuters article and add a fake quote contributed to former Attorney General John Ashcroft. Lemo often hacked systems and then notified both the press and the victims of the hack. He was eventually sentenced to 2 years of probation and fined $65,000. Kevin Poulsen, also known as Dark Dante, was a young 20-something hacker with a penchant for mischief. His alleged exploits include hacking into the LA phone networks to ensure he won a prize from a radio show, and even hacking into the phone calls of Hollywood starlets, according to the New York Times. After the Feds started looking for him, Paulson went on the run for 17 months. He was eventually featured on the popular TV show Unsolved Mysteries. In what is considered one of the most famous hacks, when the show displayed a phone number for viewers to call in if they had information on Paulson, the phone numbers for the program went instantly dead. After serving his time for his online crimes, Paulson turned to journalism, and he now serves as a contributing editor at Wired. Ray Butler, who went by the alias Iceman, was a computer security consultant who turned into one of the world's biggest hackers. As a teenager, Butler became interested in bulletin board systems and hacking. After a parent reported a theft of chemicals from a lab room in the high school, Meridian High School expelled Butler, and Butler pleaded guilty to malicious injury to property, first-degree burglary, and grand theft. Arrested in 2007, Iceman digitally stole 2 million credit card numbers and ran up over $86 million in fraudulent charges. The federal authorities accused him of operating an online forum known as Carter's Market, where hackers bought and sold stolen financial data. Butler is serving a 13-year sentence, which was the longest punishment ever inflicted on a hacker at the time. Vladimir Levin. Levin is a Russian hacker who, in 1995, broke into Citibank's computers and allegedly stole nearly $10 million by rewiring it to various global accounts. The most famous part of Levin's hack was not that he used the internet to commit his crime. Instead, he tapped into the telecommunications system to listen to customers rattle off their private account information. All but 400,000 of his winnings were able to be recovered by the authorities. Ultimately, he pleaded guilty to just one charge of making $3.7 million in unauthorized transfers. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison in order to pay back $240,000 to Citibank. Albert Gonzalez. According to the New York Daily News, Gonzalez, dubbed Soup Nazi, got his start as the troubled pack leader of computer nerds at his Miami high school. He eventually became active on criminal commerce site shadowcrew.com and was considered one of its best hackers and moderators. At 22, Gonzalez was arrested in New York for debit card fraud related to stealing data from millions of cardholders. Gonzalez executed one of the largest known identity thefts the world has ever seen. In 2010, he was sentenced to 20 years in prison after confessing to stealing millions of personal credit and debit card accounts. He was accused of stealing as many as 170 million card numbers, according to the Associated Press. Gary McKinnon. McKinnon is a Scottish computer hacker who was able to gain access to 97 American military networks between 2001 and 2002. He reportedly left the military a message on its websites after he hacked them, saying, "Your security is crap." A computer prodigy by the age of 14, McKinnon was known for his impressive way of infiltrating closely guarded computer networks. What's of note about McKinnon, beyond his unbelievable hacking abilities, is that he has been on a quest to prove the existence of UFOs. In fact, McKinnon claims he was able to gain access to images of potential alien spacecraft during his hacks, although his connection was too slow to actually download the photograph. The US has tried to extradite him several times, but he still lives in the UK asylum. Robert Tappen Morris. Morris is known as the creator of the Morris worm, the first computer worm to be unleashed on the internet. As a result of this crime, he was the first person prosecuted under the 1986 Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. Morris wrote the code for the worm while he was a student at Cornell. He asserts that he intended to use it to see how large the internet was. The worm, however, replicated itself excessively, slowing computers down so that they were no longer usable. It is not possible to know exactly how many computers were infected, but experts estimate an impact of roughly 6,000 machines, which seems small, but remember, this is the mid-80s, most people didn't even know what the internet was, and it was in very much its early infancy, so 6,000 machines impacted is a large percentage of the internet at the time. He was sentenced to 3 years probation, 400 hours of community service, and fined $10,500. Morris is currently working as a tenured professor at the MIT Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Laboratory. Jonathan James. Jonathan James, known as Comrade online, pleaded guilty to intercepting 3,300 email messages at one of the Defense Department's most sensitive operations and stealing data from 13 NASA computers, including some devoted to the new International Space Station at the time. James gained notoriety when he became the first juvenile to be sentenced to prison for hacking. He was sentenced at 16 years old. He installed a backdoor in the Defense Threat Reduction Agency servers, which handles reducing the threat to the US and its allies from nuclear, biological, chemical, conventional, and special weapons attacks. The backdoor he created enabled him to view sensitive emails and capture employee usernames and passwords. James also cracked into NASA computers, stealing software worth approximately $1.7 million at the time. In 2008, James committed suicide by gunshot. Michael Kels. In February 2000, 15-year-old Michael, also known as Mafia Boy, discovered how to take over networks of university computers. He used their combined resources to disrupt the #1 search engine at the time, Yahoo. Within 1 week, he'd also brought down Dell, eBay, CNN, and Amazon using a distributed denial of service attack that overwhelmed corporate servers and caused their websites to crash. Mafia Boy's wake-up call was perhaps the most jarring for cybercrime investors and internet proponents. The biggest websites in the world, valued at over $1 billion at the time, could easily be disrupted. Was any online data truly safe? It's not an exaggeration to say the development of cybercrime legislation suddenly became a top government priority thanks to Mafia Boy's hacking. Before we reveal the #1 infamous hacker of all time from our list, here are 2 additional honorable mentions that are worth noting. Joseph Popp is an American evolutionary biologist with a PhD from Harvard. In 1989, Popp sent out 20,000 discs to health researchers around the world, masquerading as a survey designed to test one's risk of contracting AIDS. But after a fixed number of reboots, the virus locked the computer. Users were instructed to turn on their printers, from which a ransom note soon emerged, demanding a $189 licensing fee in exchange for a decryption key, making it the first piece of ransomware ever written. Victims were instructed to send the ransom to a P.O. box in Panama, which is basically the 20th century equivalent to a Bitcoin scam. Jeanson James Ancheta. Ancheta had no interest in hacking systems for credit card data or crashing networks to deliver social justice. Instead, Ancheta was curious about the use of bots, which are software-based robots that can infect and ultimately control computer systems. Using a series of large-scale botnets, he was able to compromise more than 400,000 computers in 2005. He then rented these machines out to advertising companies and was also paid to directly install bots and adware on specific systems. Ancheta was sentenced to 57 years in prison. and this was the first time a hacker was sent to jail for using botnet technology. Kevin Mitnick. The Department of Justice described Kevin Mitnick at one point as the most wanted computer criminal in United States history. His exploits were detailed in two movies, Freedom Downtown and Takedown. He started out exploiting the Los Angeles bus punch card system to get free rides. Then, like Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak, dabbed in phone hacking. Although he could have been convicted on numerous offenses, Mitnick was ultimately convicted for breaking into the Digital Equipment Corporation's computer network and stealing software. He even admits to hacking the NSA's phone calls at one point. Kevin Mitnick is perhaps one of the best-known hackers of all time. In 1995, he pleaded guilty to multiple counts of fraud and served 5 years in prison. He now works as a professional security consultant. Thanks for watching, and as always, please like, subscribe, and provide comments, and turn on notifications by clicking the bell in order to check out future videos published twice a week.